when I die, there's a 50-50 chance. There's a 50% chance that I'm going to go to heaven, or if there is one, or there's a 50% chance that I'm going to go to hell if there is one. And I started realizing, well, wait a minute, here I am on the other side, and I'm not seeing the devil. I'm not burning in fire. This is the most bizarre thing about my near-death experience.
Everyone, welcome back to My Spirit Lives On, the show where we answer the questions of life and the afterlife. Today, my guest is Josh Damours, who had a near-death and out-of-body experience, and he got to meet some interesting light beings and learn some powerful lessons about life, and he's working on a book that's coming out this month. So welcome to the show, Josh. How are you today?
Good. How about yourself? Thank you so much for having me.
Doing great, man. Could you take us back? Tell us a little bit about your life leading up to your near-death experience, and then how did that all go down?
About 9 months before my near-death experience, I started having a bunch of pain in my stomach or my upper abdomen area. And so it's the pain started, it would come like maybe once a week. And over time, the pain became more and more chronic. So leading up to my near-death experience, I was just going through, various episodes of pain in my abdomen. There were many times when I went to the emergency room throughout those 9 months. No one knew what was wrong with me. When I would go in there, a lot of people thought that I had ulcers. Some of the doctors thought that maybe I had either if it was ulcers or they thought that maybe I just had some really bad heartburn. So they started running tests on me. Whatever time I would go to the ER, they would just give me some morphine and run some tests and then just tell me to follow up with a doctor or with a specialist. So eventually what happened was I ended up scheduling an appointment to have I think it's called an endoscopy, where they put down a camera down your throat and they check for all types of stuff. I was referred to a specialist and I made an appointment with him. The only problem was the appointment that I had made with him, the earliest they could see me would be about 8-9 months out. So it was pretty far out in advance. So in the meantime, I had to basically wait and suffer. Eventually, the Christmas Eve, the night before Christmas Day, actually Christmas morning, is when I started experiencing really bad pain in my abdomen area again. And this time the pain wouldn't go away. It was just chronic and just burning and just it was terrible pain. So I went to the ER, and this time, by the time I got to the ER, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day. And I got there, and then that's when I got admitted. And then they ran a few tests, additional tests, and they ended up discovering that my gallbladder was infected. I had gallstones, and I was actually leaking pus into my system. So that basically required immediate surgery right away. So that's what led up to it. So those first 9 months, no one really knew what was wrong with me. Of course, all along, it was my gallbladder, and then it led up to this point where it was about to rupture, actually.
What do you think caused that? Was were you drinking a lot of energy drinks, or was it diet related?
No, so you know what? That's a good question. No one's actually ever asked me that. But I believe that at the time I had been working in HR at this one job for quite a while, and there was a lot of stress involved with it. I don't work there anymore. But I just believe that it was just the chronic stress of the job, and HR is very demanding. And I worked for a certain employer that it was just really tough on me. So I think it was stress related that led up to that. That actually, because I've read that stress can really make you sick, and so I firmly believe it was my job related stress.
That sounds about right. Did you just pass out one day, or did you die on the operating table, or what happened there?
So it was actually the operating table. So what happened was that morning once they found out what was wrong with me, that I needed surgery right away, within a few hours I was actually prepped and inside the operating room, and it was actually on the operating table that I actually died. So what led up to that point was went into the operating room. I was terrified because it was my first time ever having surgery. I didn't know what to expect, and I had never been under anesthesia before. Not with that kind of surgery. So they put me into the operating room, and they tied you down. The bed is like a cross shape, so they're like out like this, like Jesus.
Really?
Yeah,
I'd be scared too.
yeah, I was expecting it to look like I don't know why, but I was expecting the hospital, there's the OR to have like a bed in there. Like I know that was kind of dumb of me to expect, but I was just thinking of a bed, regular bed. And then when I get in there, it's a cross. So they of course they strap you down, lay on the bed. I was started to cry, and so the nurse, the one that was going to administer the anesthesia and all that, she said, it's okay, sweetheart, you'll be fine, and that was comforting. So she just said, just close your eyes. She put a mask over my head or my face, and she said, close your eyes and just count down from 10 to 1, and you go to sleep. Um, so of course I'm in pain. I'm hurting. I'm crying. I'm a wreck. And so I start counting down from 10 to 1, and I say 10. Within a second, I already start feeling groggy. It's 9, and then I get to 8, and after that, everything just goes black. I don't even remember getting down to 7. So everything just goes black, and then suddenly it's almost like I went to sleep and then I woke back up, but I woke up in pitch black, conscious, very, very wide awake. I mean, I couldn't feel anything. I wasn't awake in that sense. I was awake in the sense of at that point, I didn't realize yet what had happened, but I just knew something was really off. So everything's dark. It's just black. I'm not scared, actually. Surprisingly, I wasn't scared. I wouldn't say I felt peace or anything like some people say they feel peace, Again, I didn't know what was going on at the time. I didn't realize I was having a near-death experience, not yet. And then suddenly, I see this little pinpoint of light way off into the distance. That's how it looked to me, just this little pinpoint of light. It was almost like sunrise when the sun starts to come up, everything just gets light, but it was almost like sunrise, but seeing it in fast forward, like the pinpoint of light starts to grow and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the whole time I'm starting thinking, oh my God, like I'm starting to realize it more and more that I'm definitely no longer on the operating table. I'm somewhere else. And again, it's like you're awake, but you're more awake than your waking life. I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but it's just so real.
It feels more real than what we're doing right now.
Of course, yes. What we're doing right now is less real. It's everything's. I mean, when you compare it to the other world, whatever you want to call it, this world that we're doing now, it's just diluted. It's fuzzy. I mean, I have perfect vision because I got surgery, but fuzzy in a sense of it's just not as real. The colors here aren't vibrant and just like pop. You know.
Did you have any religious or spiritual background before you went into the surgery? Because it sounded like you were afraid of possibly dying going into this.
Yeah, so I have I know I'm wearing a cross, and I did not grow up being indoctrinated with any kind of religion. I grew up basically being told to believe in God, and that's it. No one ever defined what that meant. We did have a family Bible that was in the closet that sat there that never got read, which is typical for most families. They just kind of the Bible just sits in the closet. Um, if so, what happened was I eventually joined a church back when I was 17 years old. I joined a Pentecostal church. They were a very fundamentalist type of church, very conservative. For example, the women couldn't cut their hair and they couldn't wear pants. They had to wear, no makeup, no jewelry. Men, I usually have a shaved head, but men couldn't shave their head. This was basically considered idolatry to wear a cross. That's how conservative that this church was. But anyway, so previously I had about 3 or 4 years of exposure to the fundamentalist church. I ended up leaving the church just because I couldn't reconcile my homosexuality with the whole Christianity. So what happened was I ended up becoming agnostic for quite a while. And then leading up to my near-death experience, at that time I didn't know what to believe. I was agnostic at the time. And but as far as God, I didn't know if there's a God, but I wasn't closed off to the idea, but I was super, super closed off to religion. I was just so done with religion, and I started becoming more of a spiritual person, if that makes any sense.
Totally. So then when you were going into that surgery that day, were you thinking like, dear God, don't let me die? Or if I do, having any thoughts like that just before?
Yeah. So yeah. I was just terrified. I've always been one thing I've always been terrified of is death, and so my biggest fear was I was going to die because I didn't know what was on the other side. I don't know if there was another side.
Were you led to believe that you wouldn't go to a good place because of your orientation?
Yes, yeah, it's a good question. I never thought of it until you meant, but yes. So because you're asking a lot of questions that most people haven't asked me, so I'm really surprised by that, and I appreciate that. That's actually really those are good questions. But yes, so my biggest one of my biggest fears of death is the fact that most people know that Christianity, not all, I know not all branches of Christianity, but a lot of branches of Christianity do not, they condemn, any sexual activity outside of heterosexual norms is considered bad. So yes, I've always had that hanging over my head. People, the constant, you're gonna go to hell. And you know what's even now, to this day, I still get that even on podcasts. If I go on to a podcast, I'll get people who will message me, and they're trying to preach me to go back to Jesus and stuff like that. So
Is that part of that might have been part of the reason why you were afraid of the surgery and possibly dying? Is like, what's going to happen to me? And the church always told me you don't get to go to heaven if you do this. But it's like, wait a minute. I think about that Bible verse in Romans. It says, I'm convinced nothing can separate us from the love of God, neither height nor depth nor angels or whatever. So can my sexuality separate me from God's love too? Would be the next question, you know?
right. And so yeah, and so so really the expectation of when I died in my mind, I always thought, well, when I die, there's a 50-50 chance. There's a 50% chance that I'm gonna go to heaven, or if there is one, there's a 50% chance that I'm gonna go to hell if there is one. And I really don't know. But that's kind of this is what surprises me about my near-death experience, because when as the whole experience, unfolded, I started realizing, well, wait a minute, here I am on the other side, and I'm not seeing the devil. I'm not burning in fire. I'm not being, tormented. I'm not weeping and gnashing my teeth like Jesus said. If you don't follow him, none of those things are happening. Nothing's happening. I'm not separated by the light, because there's the light coming towards me.
Oh, yeah.
And as Paul, I think Paul, or in the New Testament, talks about how you're in the darkness if you're gay, whatever. So the light kept approaching, and it was growing bigger and bigger, and then it started unfolding into a tunnel of light. It was spiraling, this beautiful, bright, large tunnel. I mean, it was like, it felt like it was 20 feet up. It was just so huge, this massive light of tunnel came towards me, and then it just rested right in front of me. And at the time, I'm still like shocked. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm Josh. Like, I knew who I was. I'm very aware. I don't have a body at that time. I don't remember seeing a torso or arms or, fingers or anything. I'm just kind of consciousness just sitting there in front of this tunnel of light. So this is the part of my near-death experience that I haven't fully grasped yet. But what ended up happening next is, once the tunnel of light stopped and stood right in front of me, that's when I noticed that there's these 3D beings of light around me. There was one on my right side, one on my left, and one behind me. I couldn't see the one behind me, but I could sense that he or she, they're genderless, but I just say he, just because I'm a guy, so I would just say, it's just easier to say it that way. But I couldn't see him behind me, but I could feel his presence. But the ones my right and my left were there, and I had never heard of beings of light before in my life. I had never read about them. I'd never didn't even know they existed. I didn't even know what they were called. But somehow, for some reason, when I saw them, when I saw them, I knew exactly who they were. I didn't know them as friends, but I just knew who they were. I knew that what they were. I knew that they were light beings. So, and they're kind of shaped like crosses. They're like they're not shaped like people. They're highly intelligent, but they weren't shaped like, they're almost like stick figures. But they didn't have a head. But they were very intelligent. They were like, they had a dark, solid black core to them. And then they emanated white light all around them. It was sparkling like everywhere, all around them. And when they would move, they would move very animate. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not explaining this probably the best way, but it's hard to explain what they look.
It's okay. Yeah, that's a common theme. It's hard to explain. Someone said it similar to what you're saying. They said it was like a Rick and Morty cartoon, is the way it felt to them.
Yes. Yes.
Like almost like an animated thing. Yeah.
Yes, animated. It felt very animated. But there were, and I wasn't scared. Like, again, this whole experience was not scary, because normally, obviously the experience was more real than what it is now to me. But obviously, if you saw these in your waking life, somebody might freak out if they saw a light being materialized in front of them. But for some reason, it wasn't scary. It was just like, I just knew who they were. And I just remember how beautiful they were, and just being in shock that I was surrounded by these entities that I had no clue existed up until now. And if you had told me before my near death experience, if someone had told me that light beings existed, I would have been skeptical, and I understand skepticism. I have a whole healthy respect for that. I would have been like, no, I don't believe you. I have to see it for myself, and I did see it for myself. But in that case,
So then the next question is, who were they? You felt in your core being you knew who they were? Was it God and Jesus or?
no, they were light beings. So I never saw God in my near death experience. And that was another takeaway from when I was looking at these light beings, and I saw them. I never once sensed that they were God or God's presence around me. It was they were exactly who they were. They were light beings, or they were beings of light. They were highly intelligent. My sense from when I was around them, and after the downloads that they gave to me, my sense is that they occupy the highest realm of the they occupy like all knowledge. So they know everything. Omniscience, that's kind of what it's called. But that comes later. But anyway, so the beings of light that were around me, and they weren't speaking to me, but I knew who they were, and they were just there before I was allowed to enter into the tunnel of light. At that time, I didn't realize that I was going to enter it. But looking back, I realized now what was about to happen. But so I'm standing there, and I'm surrounded by these beings of light, and suddenly I look over, and I see crowds and crowds of people, just a bunch of hundreds of people, thousands of people, and they're not running into the tunnel of light. They're just walking at a very fast pace, like it's almost like pacing, but like a fast walking. And they were very they were people. They were dressed up as firefighters. There were people dressed up in office attire. There were people that were just dressed up in street clothes. And I remember thinking at first, I was like, who are these people? I asked myself that question, like, why am I seeing all these people eagerly going into the tunnel of light? And then suddenly it hit me, and I this is the most bizarre thing about my near death experience. Suddenly the answer just came to me, and I realized who these people were. These were the people that had died on 9/11 in the Twin Towers, and I was watching them. I was watching them basically transition into the tunnel of light and onto the other side. I was just like in awe. I was like, whoa, like and I'm getting chills just thinking about it, but I would
Yeah.
just remember thinking, wow, and I have a special, I was actually on 9/11 when it actually happened, September 11th, the terrorist attacks. I was actually flying that day. I was up in the air when it actually happened. So
Oh, really?
I actually got grounded in Seattle, and I got stuck in Seattle for about 5 days. So,
Mm.
but I was airborne when they hit the towers. I was actually in an aircraft as well. But looking in hindsight, is that the reason why I witnessed all these people passing. They weren't terrified. I know that the whole experience must have been terrifying. I'm not denying that. But all these people who are dying, who were transitioning, they were very peaceful. They were very eager to get to the other side. They were and they weren't suffering anymore. They were fine. They were okay. And I don't say that lightly, because I know that there's a lot of sensitivity around 9/11. But I feel like why I saw that vision, or I don't even know if it was a vision. I don't know what exactly you would even call that, because when you think of a vision, you think of a dream, like they project something onto the wall. But I mean, I was actually seeing these people. They were full body, flesh and blood people, like entering into the tunnel of light. And
Wow.
so my thought on that is that I think they showed me that because there was a couple of reasons. One, they knew that down the road I would share my story with other people, and so they knew that would hopefully provide comfort to people who actually knew people who died in those twin towers. And two, I was traveling that day, and I had always wondered about those people. And so what was it like? I mean, obviously it was awful what they went through, but I always wondered about the other side. What was it like to transition? Were they scared? And so anyway, so they weren't scared, but it was just the most beautiful experience just to see these massive crowds just going into the light. So once that I see that, that's when I started going through the tunnel of lights myself as well. And this is when it gets even more. This is kind of where it gets really more beautiful, more profound, because the tunnel of light is where you almost like, once I started entering into the tunnel of light, I did feel a lot of peace in my peace inside. But at the same time, I didn't know where I was going. I was just going through this light. But at first, I saw before I went up, transition fully, I was actually below me. I could see landscapes, these beautiful, breathtaking landscapes of mountains and trees and wildflowers and valleys. and the sunrise and everything. I saw all these just beautiful landscapes beneath me in this tunnel. So I'm basically seeing Earth. I'm seeing all the land, and it's again, the colors are so beautiful. They're magnificent. They pop out. They're way more real than the colors are here. Everything out here is diluted. But I saw this breathtaking, beautiful landscapes, and then suddenly I was sucked up into the tunnel of light. Just at this massive lights. It almost felt like it was faster than the speed of light. It was so fast. I could feel when you're on a roller coaster. I don't know if you've ever been on a roller coaster, but when you go on a roller coaster and you go up, and then when you start going down, you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach. That's what I felt like. It was so intense. But again, I wasn't scared. I mean, on a roller coaster, I would have been terrified, but I wasn't scared of that. It was just, the feeling was so real. It was like just being sucked up, like I was like an ant being sucked up in a straw. Like, yep. I mean, it was so fast. I could feel the wind. I could feel it. And I can hear it just going past me. Like, dude, it was so fast. So I get sucked up into the tunnel of light, and I'm going at this really fast pace, insanely fast. And then I'm shot out into the universe, and I'm flying through the universe. I'm flying through flying through clusters of galaxies, and every time I would fly through these big clusters of stars, of galaxies, they would just explode and they would vibrate all these beautiful colors, and it was just incredible. And I first, when I started flying through the speed of light, I didn't realize that I was in space, but then eventually I realized, oh my God, I'm actually now in space. I'm flying through the universe. This is like, I'm flying everywhere basically. My spirit is everywhere, and then after that happened, that's when I actually I ended up in a room. It didn't have any walls or anything, but it was just this empty space, and all around me it was hazy. I was back again with the light beings that were surrounding me. If I'm talking too much, just let me know. I don't know if you have any questions for me or.
Was your operation that you had, where you died during your operation, was that around 2001 or just after 9/11, or no?
Oh, no. No, no. So my operation was that was in 2017.
Oh, it was a long time later.
Yeah,
But for some
a
reason,
long time later. Yeah.
it was some reason you got shown the 911 victims were
Yeah.
all going through the tunnel.
Oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nobody there was excluded, huh? Everybody got to go through that tunnel. Like, they're going towards a good place, is what your impression was?
Nobody was going to a bad place. You know what? One thing I've been really consistent about when it comes to that question. I've read this about other people's near-death experiences as well, and I've heard these things too. But I got the impression that there really is no, we all make it to. I know this is gonna sound cliche, but we all make it to the other side. I don't believe in like hell, or in that sense. I know it matters. Yes, it matters how you treat people. But for some reason, I don't understand this. But we all make it to the other side. I just don't know how. As far as like, if you're implying like cosmic, is there something as cosmic justice? I don't know. But I don't get the sense that people are punished. And I know that sounds terrible to say, because there's a lot of people out there that we think in our heads that should be punished.
People also say there's the life review portion, and in the life review, they see how they made other people feel. Like, if I hurt you really bad, I get to feel your pain. So one of the conclusions that I've come to from interviewing about 50 people is, well, if you're having your life review, what if you were a mass murderer? And like, we go to the Hitler example. So what if you made 1 million people choke on poison gas? Well, now if you have to feel what that is like to suck down poison gas 1 million times over, that's going to feel like eternity, and it's going to feel like hell. But after you get that that life review, then you get to move on, right? Because you've done your time, I guess. I don't know how to, and I didn't have an NDE, so I'm just piecing together the puzzle pieces.
I have to agree with you. I've come to believe, or I've adopted the view that there is no eternal suffering. That even the worst even the worst people amongst us, I guess the life review is like their version of hell or purgatory, I guess, if you want to call it that. I've had people get really upset at me for saying that, but I'm not going to lie and say make it up and just make someone happy. I'm just going to tell it the way I saw it.
Right. Thank you. And the other logical question I hear is like, would a truly loving God that loves everyone, even the crazy psychotic murderer or molester or whatever, would that would you really have to boil in lava forever and ever and ever for like a few times, like you shoplifted or you're the bully on the playground or you stole, like really forever in lava? So like a loving God wouldn't make you suffer forever and ever. you know?
Yeah, I agree, and then and it reminds me, just let's use Christianity as an example. There are many verses, especially in Matthew and the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus talks about um, where he says, "Be perfect because your Father in heaven is perfect," and then he goes into explain what that means, and he says, "Well, your Father in heaven, He sends both the sun and the rain on both the just and the unjust." And so then that's when he goes on and he says, "Well, you need to treat people both good and bad, treat them well, like just like your heavenly Father does." There's a lot of verses in there that talk about love and not judgment, and so I don't believe in hell. I really don't. I believe that the I believe we all pay. We all, like you said, I believe that we all experience the pain that we put through others through. But the whole concept of eternal suffering is very barbaric and just very to me it makes no sense. It's so illogical. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, thanks for indulging me on that philosophical tangent. Part of the theme of the show is we're answering questions of life and the afterlife. So it's good we get into those little side discussions. But if you could take us back, you're at that tunnel, you're seeing people from 9/11 go in, and you're also looking down and you're seeing beautiful landscapes. And then what happened next?
Yeah, so basically, after I saw the landscapes and I went through the space, I was going through the galaxy, flying through all that. I end up. This is where my near death experience is coming to an end. So I'm in this room. I'm not in a room. I'm in this space. I'm just existing. I exist somewhere. Everything around me was like clouds or cloudy or hazy. But I was in this room, and I was with the light things again. And they were, again, they were on my right, left, and behind me. And then it was this is telepathic, but they don't speak, verbally. No one speaks verbally on the other side, but they spoke to me and they said, "Well, your time's about up. You have to go back, but you're allowed to ask one question. And what is your question?" And so I remember thinking for a minute, just grappling with that, like, what do I ask them? Because there's a million things I would like to ask them, but I'm only allowed to ask them one question. And so, I've suffered with depression my whole life since I was a child, very little. And so my question to them was, well, what's the meaning of life? What's the point? What's the purpose of all this? What's the point of living? Because I've always struggled with that. And then that's when they reached out and they touched me. The way I can describe it was they touched my shoulder. And by then I'm becoming more, it's almost like when they touched me, it's almost like I was starting to return to my body in a way, because I started becoming more aware of my body again. But they touched me, and then suddenly my whole body, it's almost like I'm being electrocuted. I just feel this intense vibration, this intense electrical charge running through my body from head to toe. And it's just like, zzz, like just buzzing and just like, and, as they touched me, as I was being, Zap, that's when I experienced, I don't know if you've ever had anyone on your show yet who's talked about the experiencing God consciousness, where you kind of know everything. You experience all the knowledge there is in the world and like the universe. I don't know if you've ever had anyone on your show that said the same thing,
Yep. A few people.
but that's what I experienced. When I was in that state, it was the most peaceful, the most peaceful state that could possibly be. And it was peaceful because I understood everything. I understood why things happen the way they are. I understood that everything has purpose behind it. I understood the meaning behind everything. I understood also that the biggest takeaway is that my biggest understanding of the meaning of life, as how I perceived it, um, is part of our process as human beings, is to expand our consciousness. And part of our purpose here is to eventually evolve to where we expand our consciousness to become more aware of them, that they exist, to become more aware of the bigger things in life. I hope that's kind of making sense. It's really hard to explain this stuff.
Try to understand that in my own words. Part of the meaning of life is to not be so wrapped up in life and the material stuff, like the new clothes or the new car or whatever it is, video games, books, home design, not be so caught up in that, but be more focused on the spiritual stuff that some people don't even think it exists, but to learn how to tap into that, or communicate with that and kind of have fellowship with that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense, and I think they also, I believe that it's been almost 10 years since this happened, so I've had time to process this, and when I was writing my book, you know, that helped me process it as well. But um, I believe that they want us to be aware of them, that they exist. I think that's where they're headed with this. That almost like an example. I'm not saying that this is what they told me, but as an example, there's a lot of people out there who believe that there's aliens or there's extraterrestrial life in the universe, right? So it's almost like some people have thrown out the theory that they think that one day aliens are going to want us to know that they exist. Well, I'm not saying that the light beings were aliens, but as an example, hopefully get my point across. But I think the light beings, they want us to evolve to where they want us to become more aware of their existence and the existence of the spirit world because obviously we obviously need that this especially at this time in history, we really need that. So I think that they're just trying to it's okay to enjoy the material things of life. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you don't abuse those things. But there's way more to life than just, your car, your job, your how much money you have in the bank. Life isn't about that all. At the end of the day, when all said and done, all that matters is the quality of the relationships that you have with people and how you treated people. That's all that matters. Is really that. It doesn't matter and anything else doesn't matter. It's just how did you treat people? I had so many people in my life that mattered to me, and that I tried to treat really well. And I was thinking about that, before I went under. But yeah, the whole point of life really is to expand our consciousness, but to also be kind to each other. And we're not doing that. We're kind of doing the opposite right now. So I think that I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only one that they're going to, I'm sure that they're appearing to other people and they're telling them the same thing.
Yeah, I would imagine. I've never heard one person during their life review say they got like bonus points on the way to heaven because of their new car, or they made $1 million finally, the, 2 comma club or whatever. And I do hear people say that they not only get the life review, but then they see the ripple effects that they had on someone. So if they really help someone out, like when they, like, you're stranded and they give you a ride in the car, for example, that led to a bunch of positive ripple effects for that person. Or bullying on in grade school came up a lot in the last couple of interviews.
Really?
Yeah, and one guy saw, he walked in on a bathroom and this poor kid had all his clothes taken away by a group of bullies. And he's walking in to see this happening. And then there wasn't much he could do. He went and got a teacher, but it traumatized this poor kid for many years to come. And now the NDE guest of mine, he then goes into the mind or the life of that poor boy and got to see the ripple effects. He didn't hurt the kid, but for some reason he like empathetically saw how he treated him. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense, that how we treat
Yeah.
people actually matters way more than we realize. And I don't know, we all go through our things, but for me, I've been learning to let go of grudges. I've been learning to forgive people that have stolen from me, people in church that treated me wrong. I probably treated them a little bit wrong too to get what I got, but
Well,
it's yeah.
I'm glad that you hit on that point. None of us are perfect. We've all been someone's enemy. Even whether it's intentional or unintentional. The biggest highlight here is not hold grudges. Forgiveness is a huge thing. I know that's not always easy, but and my biggest thing is I think it's one of the biggest things is which one of the scriptures I like is do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself. And so if that's a big important, that's a huge and that's really important. That's really important to have that quality. Um, but yeah, so after I experienced this download, this incredible experience. I mean, it was the most incredible thing to go through. That's when I woke back up. I was actually in the recovery room. I woke back up, and I just remember thinking to myself, well, "This is really strange. I'm awake now, but I just died." And I didn't talk about it for quite a while. I never told anyone about it because I did, because I when I finally did come to it, took me a couple of years to talk about it. But when I finally did start talking about it, um, I would, yeah, I would get met with skepticism, so I just stopped talking about it, because I didn't know what to tell people, or I got tired of being, I just got tired of it, and it was just really draining because I was like, well, this really happened to me,
Who was the first person you tried to tell about this, and how did it go?
Actually my partner, and he's super supportive, but my partner, I tried to tell him about it at first, and I was kind of midway. We're actually out eating at a restaurant one night, and we had I don't know how we even got on the topic of near death experiences, but I somehow kind of something he said something, and then I started opening up about it, and then he had to go to use the restroom, and then when he came back, he didn't ask me any more questions, so I just didn't go into it, so I kind of figured, well, maybe he doesn't, maybe he's not interested. Um, but it wasn't until now that he's taken a huge interest in it, because he's doing his podcast, and he knows that I have a book coming out, so now he's actually like really interested in my story now. But he was the first one, and then I told other people. There was a stranger was the second one I told, but the stranger she made me feel really comfortable, like I could be vulnerable and I could open up. And then when I did, she's like, well, she didn't believe me. So I was like, okay, well, forget this. This is not. It wasn't comfortable. It was really uncomfortable to be in that position. So I just gave up. I just stopped talking about it until now, basically.
Wow. You have a unique perspective, right? Coming from a gay background, did the light beings touch on the topic of sexuality or morality around that at all? Or did that never come up?
It never came up, but I just assumed that, if God really didn't love me because I'm gay, I don't think I would have had this experience. I don't think that they would have bothered. I mean, think about it. If I was really going to go to hell, like a lot of people think I am, why would I have had this near death experience? Why did I encounter the light beings? I never encountered God, but that's a thing I want to hit on too, is that, and it's going to sound, this might sound kind of, not every near death experience is about God. Sometimes it's about other things, it's about you, but God doesn't have to be in all of them, and he's not in all their, near death experiences. And I want to highlight that, because I don't say that to diminish God or to make anyone upset, but I just want people to know that
everyone's been different. I mean, I've watched over 100, probably going on 200. I wish I kept a tally. I could do that. It would just take time to go and review my whole YouTube history, but probably getting close to 200 that I've watched on other channels and books that I've read, but doing about 50 interviews. Yeah, some people, they just go to the void space and come back. It's very brief, and they feel peaceful about it. Others get a tour of what they consider to be a hellish realm, and they don't wish it upon anyone. And they totally clean up their life when they come back. And they had to see that, I guess, for various reasons. So they would clean up their life. Others, they're so close to God, or they see themselves in God, or they say you and me in the God energy source. And they say that we're all connected and we're all one. So it's such a wide variety of experiences, but that's what makes it exciting, is that death is nonlinear. And I think that's really exciting, good news for the curious person who's studying thanatology, or the study of death and dying. Because if you just go to your average church, they're going to say you die, then you go up or you go down. And it's like, come on, there's so much more than that.
There's a lot more. There's we don't know we don't know everything, but I hate to say it this way, but there's so much misinformation in the church, and I hope I don't make anyone upset by saying this.
It's okay. I agree with you.
It's just too much, and it's just like, and the church, I really wish that it wasn't that it was different.
I'll share with you really quick. Have you heard of Louisa Peck?
No, I don't believe so.
She's on my channel. Beautiful story. She wrote a book called Die Hard Atheist, because she was an atheist when she died. And she was in a nightclub. She was partying. Someone gave them some cocaine, but it wasn't that. It was like lidocaine mixed with baby powder or baking soda or something. And so she's doing all this lidocaine thinking it's cocaine, and also some alcohol, and she dies in the nightclub. And she had a positive NDE. She didn't burn in fire. She wasn't feeling judged. She was like floating over the ocean and swimming with dolphins. And then she had some like mystical revelations. Now, I was just starting my channel, so I was like, how did you as an atheist end up with a positive NDE experience? And she said, well, I had one thing going for me. And this is biblical. And Jesus talked about this in Matthew 25. So she said, I was always nice to homeless people. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. The church says good works don't get you into heaven. The church says only faith in Jesus Christ, and everybody else that hasn't gotten to hear about Jesus, they don't get to make it, right? That doesn't logically make sense. So then I was like, I re-looked at the Gospels in Matthew 25. Jesus himself talks about the parable of sheep and the goats, and there's people that are getting to go to heaven in that story. They had no idea who God was, and God's like, you're coming into my kingdom because you fed me when I was hungry. You checked on me when I was in prison. You fixed me up when I was sick, right? You know the story, right?
Yep.
So it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Jesus taught that. Jesus is teaching that good works do get some people into heaven. And faith in Christ is also important. I mean, the thief on the cross just put his faith in Christ at the last minute. He didn't have any time to do any good works. So belief can get you there, apparently. And the other half of the gospel message, in my opinion, is that good works can't, because Louisa Peck's story is an anomaly or an outlier. So
Yeah, no, I love that story, by the way. But I mean, and I totally agree with you on 100% on your interpretation. But
don't shoot the messenger. I just tell you have to tell everybody what Jesus is, because I know I'm going to get comments on here like, no, you can't believe that.
I'm sure I'll get a message here and there from somebody, saying that they disagree with me, but I've never had the intent to indoctrinate anyone or to convince anyone of my near-death experience, like as far as like spiritual truth. Like I don't want to tell people what to believe, but but the thing is, near-death experiences, they're happening a lot, and there's something to it. You can't just ignore it. You just can't. And near-death experiences, they are far more consistent, even though they differ in detail. There's truth to this. And I already know. Like I don't have to. No one has to. No one can sit there and try to convince me, because I already know that there's more to life. That our consciousness continues on after our bodies just give up. I know that for sure. And I can't wait to die. So that was one of my residual effects of the near-death experience, was that once I had that experience, I don't fear death anymore. I'm actually excited to die. I hate to say it that way.
It sounds suicidal at first, but I get what you're saying.
But no, I'm not. The only thing I'm afraid of is how I'm gonna die. If it hurts, but I'm not afraid. I already know that there's an afterlife. I know where I'm going. And I just cannot wait for that to happen.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's another fascinating topic you're touching upon, is like some people, they say, oh, yes, there was one guy, he was riding a motorcycle or a bicycle around the corner of a mountain, and a massive truck was coming around, and it crossed over the yellow line and it hit him. But he said his spirit left the body before he could feel any pain. Dr. Ingrid Honkala, she had also a motorcycle accident. She said her spirit was out of the body before her motorcycle crashed. So I'm wondering, is like, do some people get like a pain-free ticket, like a get out of jail free, or like no pain at the time of your death? Like, is God giving some people a little favor? Maybe, I don't know, but it's kind of interesting. Some people don't. If God wants to be gracious, God can just boom, suck you out of your body before the alligator
Yeah.
chews you things.
From all appearances, it kind of seems like it's mixed. Like it seems like some people do suffer to a degree, when they die, and then there's others who just don't. But I think overall, like once you pass away, and you're, whether you suffered greatly or not, once you get to the other side, that's gonna make you forget everything. I mean, you're not even gonna care how you went, but like, and I don't say that lightly, but because like the whole experience itself is gonna just, it's gonna make what your death just feel like nothing in comparison to what you're going through then. So it's not. I don't fear it. I know I'm actually surrounded by a bunch of people who are terrified of dying, and I just look at them like, "What are you afraid of?" But then I realize that, well, they didn't have that experience. But I really wish everyone could have a near death experience, not to be near death, but I really wish that it could be something that everyone could experience, so they could actually really grasp it, and understand it.
Yeah, I'm guessing you try to share like the good news from your experience with them, and they're incredulous, or they have a hard time believing it, and it's got to feel frustrating. I would imagine it's frustrating for
It
you.
it is, but and then what that's frustrating, but I also respect it. I understand why, so I don't hold it against them. What's more frustrating is the people who don't believe me, but the people who are very religious and who just want to who want to change who want me basically to recant what I'm saying. I'm like, I'm not gonna recant my story. This is my story, So I mean, this is what happened to me, because it offends them, But there are people who I've talked to who are religious, who are open minded as well. So if my story if it makes anyone feel any more comfortable about their own death and dying, then I've accomplished something. I would hope to reach as many people as I can, and I would hope that people will be inspired by my story and by everyone else's stories. I really hope that that's the effect that it has on most people.
Let me ask you, have any churches invited you as a guest speaker to share your story yet? No,
No, no, I'm
just
actually
YouTubers.
no, yeah, just podcasters. I didn't even think about that. I never even I didn't even know if there are people out there who'd be willing to what. I didn't think that a near death experience story would be accepted in a church setting. So I've never been asked that, but I'll be shocked if I ever asked that. I'll be shocked if I'm invited.
Even though Jesus had the ultimate NDE, right? Like dead
Yes.
for 3 days, brutally murdered. It was said he went to take the keys away from the devil. Like, come on, that's the ultimate NDE right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're right. You're right. I didn't think of that. If anyone does, I mean, I think I'll be really nervous. I mean, if I do ever get accepted, or if I ever do get asked to go speak at church, of course I'll do it.
I have a feeling you will
Nervous,
someday.
obviously, because oh, okay. I'll be shocked if I do. I never thought of that.
Just speak from the heart. I mean, you've got a really unique angle, a sincere message, I think. Can we talk about your book? How did that go, writing your book? And are you allowed to say what it's called? It's not quite out yet.
Oh,
What
yeah, of course. Thanks for asking. So my book, it's called Between Breaths, and it's going to be out within about a week from now. But it's about my near-death experience, and it's not just about my near-death experience, not just about that, but it also goes into a lot of my early experiences, with the paranormal, with like ghosts and spirits, because I've been seeing spirits all my life. I'm not a psychic medium. I don't claim to be one. I'm not. I've seen ghosts throughout my life, as a kid and even as an adult. So I do go into those topics of this. I do talk about that. I also talk about my takeaway from my near death experience. Like, for one example, is I have a chapter in there that's titled "Evil is an Illusion," which I know is going to make a lot of people probably upset just to hear that chapter, the name of the chapter. But so I talk about a lot of different things. So it's not just my story. It's also a bunch of other stories, and it might not be the easiest read, because it's part memoir, part philosophical. It kind of goes off into all these different things. So you get kind of a little bit of both, or a little bit of everything in it. So I hope my biggest hope is that people will feel inspired by that. And if anything, I'm a huge empath, so I really want people to be comforted by my story. I really want to just alleviate people's pain, because I know that there's a lot of pain in the world, and I want to take people's fears away.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think I'm going to get a copy of. I've kind of become an NDE story junkie, and believe it or not, it was a book by someone like yourself that saved my life. Like, what you're doing by putting your memoirs out there, and your thoughts, and the philosophical lessons, you're probably saving lives. I think you are, because my story, and I already have like a 3-minute testimony video, a mission statement video on my YouTube channel where I summarize this. But I was suicidally depressed about 4 years ago. I went through a breakup, then I got crypto scammed out of my life savings by a romance scammer. Then I got kicked out of a church. I lost all my friends at the church. No one came to check on me over a disagreement with the pastor. And then someone tried to sabotage my income, my small business. And so I was suicide. I felt like I had nothing to live for. And even though I have some family members that cared about me, I was really, really ready to end it all. And a random stranger one day said, "Why don't you pick up, there's this book called Return from Tomorrow by an author named George Ritchie. He was in World War II, and he got pneumonia, and he died. And then he met Jesus, got a tour around planet Earth while he was in spirit body. It was Jesus showing him things about life. Then he comes back to his body, wrote the book. And he wrote the book decades ago. And some random guy I didn't even know, I'm actually friends with him now on Facebook, but he's like, "I think you should read this book." And when I read the book, there's a chapter on suicide. And actually it talks about what you said, ghosts, like seeing ghosts. I wasn't sure if ghosts are real or fake or whatever. I hear about it, and I think people are just a little kooky and they're imagining things. But the author is with Jesus, and he's literally has a lot of time to pick Jesus's brain, get answers to questions. They go into this home, and in the home there's like a mother and a father holding a picture of their son on the couch, and they're crying. Well, the son had just committed suicide, and the son his spirit didn't go straight to hell and burn. His punishment, if you want to call it that, or the aftermath, was the ghost of the son was in the living room, and he was trying to say, like, I'm sorry, mom, I'm sorry, dad. And they couldn't hear him, but he had to watch the emotional aftermath, right? And so Jesus is showing,
Yes.
yeah, so Jesus is showing the author of the book, this family, of what happens around the suicide. And maybe that's not the same suicide for everybody experience, but I was like, okay, that's not like what I learned in Catholic church, like going to hell, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a floaty spirit watching my family cry at the funeral. So it's like, I'm just going to press on. So like books like that changed my life, and it kept me from wanting to make a drastic decision.
Yeah, yeah, so speaking of the suicide, so I actually have a whole chapter devoted to suicide, and I actually I tried to do that myself, attempted suicide back when I was 2021.
Life is hard.
And yeah, yeah, and I survived. I shouldn't have survived it, but I did. I survived it, and I didn't have an NDE actually during that, which is weird, but I had one after my surgery. Um, but yeah, I do devote a whole chapter to that because I'm a huge I'm insanely empathetic or empathic towards people who are depressed or just suicidal, because I live with it myself, with depression. So yeah, I do devote a whole chapter to that in my experience. So I really hope that my story does touch someone's life, even if it makes a difference, even if it saves one life. I've made a difference. I've done something with my life. I've mattered to somebody. Or my story has reached someone and it's saved their life. So I hope that it has that effect on at least one person.
I think it'll help hundreds, if not thousands, of people as the years go on. Yeah. And everything starts with a single step. When you do something creative, a creative project like that, sometimes it takes off right away. Sometimes it takes traction, building traction and getting momentum.
Yeah. So the biggest thing I would really want anyone to know is that, especially for the LGBTQ plus community, is just to know that, it doesn't matter don't listen to what society is telling you about the afterlife. We're just as accepted we're just as much accepted into the afterlife as anyone else. So I just want everyone to know that if you're suicidal, if you're depressed, or if you're different, just know that the afterlife loves you. I don't want to say God loves you. I believe there's probably a God somewhere, but I just want to say that the afterlife loves you, and that you're just as special and just as just as deserving, to go there, and you're not a bad person. So I want people to know that even gay people go to heaven, I guess, if you can say it that way, that bluntly. Even gay people, people who are different, we still have, we're loved too. Whether that's the universe or God, I don't know, but we are loved.
If anybody wants to get in touch with you, Josh, do you have a website, or do you like to share your Facebook or anything, email, anything like that?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. So you can have Facebook. So if you just talk in my first and last name, Josh or Joshua Damours, you'll find me. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. And you can message me if you want. You can Facebook message me. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, and you can reach me that way. So I always cherish any people who write me. I always cherish those. So feel free to write me. I'll love to hear from you.
Great. And the book is called Between Breaths, and it'll be out probably at the time this video hits YouTube. Your book will be out at the same time. So.
Right. Yeah, it should be out. So if it's not out, just message me, and I'll give you an update. But just message me if you try finding it and it's not out yet. But yeah, it's been about a week.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you. I hope you have a blessed rest of the summer and not too hot down there in SoCal.
Thank you. You too.
'Cause my spirit lives on. Yeah, it's with you. I miss you. My spirit lives on. Yeah, it's with you. I miss you. My spirit lives on.